Welcome to the SVG-TV news for Wednesday, November 11th. I'm Khalil Keita with the details. 9 cabinet members and 3 senators were sworn in yesterday at the public swearing-in ceremony held at Heritage Square. Governor General Dame Susan Duggan called on all ministers to serve the people with dignity. Larissa Pugsley-Kidd tells us more with this.
That being a member of cabinet involves collective responsibility. The oaths and affirmations you made here today reflect the solemn and serious obligations you have been given and the power and authority vested in you by the instruments.
Governor General Dame Susan Duggan addressing the ministers of cabinet in front of a large crowd at Heritage Square yesterday. The Governor General also asked the ministers to honor their commitments and follow visionary leaders. Among the 9 ministers, 3 are newcomers, namely Curtis King, Carlos James, and Orlando Brewster. King is the new Minister of Education and National Reconciliation. He replaced St. Clair Prince, who is now the Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment. Carlos James, who served as Speaker in the last Parliament, is the new Minister of Tourism, Civil Aviation, Sustainable Development and Culture. And Orlando Brewster is Minister of National Mobilization, Social Development, Family Affairs, Gender, Youth, Housing and Informal Human Settlements. Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, who now has responsibility for foreign affairs, national security, legal affairs and information, said he gave Brewster such a large task because he knows that he can handle the responsibility.
I am confident that this talented and committed young man would make a success of a ministry which has been constructed as the veritable soul and spirit of the government.
The 2 ministers who retained their ministerial positions are Camilo Gonsalves as Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology, and Saboto Caesar, Minister of Agriculture, Forestry, Fisheries, Rural Transformation, Industry and Labour.
I am responsible for their coordination, to make sure they are properly coordinated, and for their linkage between them and the other ministries in the government. I shall rely a great deal on these 3 young men over the next 5 years.
Several changes were made to the other ministerial positions. St. Clair Prince is now Minister of Health, Wellness and the Environment. Frederick Stevenson has responsibility for the Public Service, Consumer Affairs and Sports. Montgomery Daniel is Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Transport, Works, Lands and Physical Planning. Julian Francis, who was again named as a Senator, now heads the Ministry of Urban Development, Energy, Airports, Seaports, Grenadines Affairs and the Local Government. The other 2 senators, both newcomers, are Rashad Bala, who was named Parliamentary Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, National Security, Legal Affairs and Information, and Ashel Morgan, a legal practitioner.
At the appropriate time, I will invite the House of Assembly to elect her as its Deputy Speaker when the House convenes on the 30th of November.
The Prime Minister said the 4th Senator will be named soon and will be junior minister to him as Foreign Affairs Minister.
There are a lot of meetings to be held overseas in foreign affairs and foreign trade, and many of them would not require my prime ministerial attendance. So I will have to get a junior minister to help me with some of that work, among with other things.
PM Gonsalves thanked Luke Brown, the immediate past Minister of Health, for his services and announced that Brown will be pursuing studies in law in England and will return to serve having completed his studies. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister said that permanent secretaries will be appointed as they also have a critical role to play to ensure that the government's policies and programs are executed.
Each permanent secretary and each head of department will be given a copy of each of our 2 manifestos, the Principal Manifesto of the ULP and the Youth Manifesto, upon which my party has been re-elected. These foundation documents constitute veritable contracts with the people.
The new cabinet had its first meeting today. For SVG-TV News, Larissa Pugsley-Kidd.
Government will be looking to review its building materials distribution program. This was revealed by Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves this morning on NBC Radio's Face-to-Face program. Dr. Gonsalves said the thinking is to have a crew in all communities that will identify houses which need some improvement and work with the homeowners and then organize labor in the respective communities with assistance from the state. He said in this way they will be better able to control the materials.
To an area and you say that there are 15 houses. We are going to do these. But listen to me. I don't want a quarrel over who is getting theirs done first. Let us do them on the basis of an assessment objectively, which are in the worst condition, taking account of everything.
The Prime Minister added that there also has to be some agreed specifications for the houses that will require attention, as the resources of the state might not be sufficient to fix some of these houses in a way that the homeowners would want.
A lot of times, even when you give building materials and people do houses, they don't tie the roof properly, so that if a gust of wind can blow off the roof. So some of those things you have to, it's easier to give the people the materials, but it may not be the best way. So we have to examine that and do that program in a different way. And we ourselves, we have a basic needs trust fund with the Caribbean Development Bank. We probably have to do a kind of equivalent of a local basic needs trust fund. Something like what we do in relation to poverty with the Zero Hunger Trust Fund to supplement other things. So that there are all those kinds of ideas with which we have to think new ways of doing things which you're having an objective.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Gonsalves said they will be taking steps to streamline the operations at the Milton Cato Memorial Hospital, and as a first step, a chief executive officer will be appointed to spearhead the facility's operations. Noting that he has someone in mind for the post, Dr. Gonsalves said he will be seeking the approval of Cabinet to move ahead and also to put them on a juridical footing. He is hoping to get wide support to ensure the plans work.
At the hospital is one in which you have so many bosses. Everybody feels that they are co-equal. You have the medical director. That is the person in charge of the doctors. The person in the hospital, the senior nursing officer who is responsible for the nurses, and then there's the overall chief nursing officer. Then you have overall the chief medical officer. You have the medical officer of health, though that he deals with community health. You have, as I say, with the clinics, but they interface. You have the person in pharmacy. You have the person at the lab. And you have the hospital administrator, whose job essentially evolves narrowly to make sure that the train runs on time, metaphorically, that there's food in the hospital, that the non-professional staff, non-professional mean non-nursing and non-medical staff, that they do their own work, have maintenance with their own boss. Everybody is his or her own boss. No, that was okay with a smaller hospital, and with the range of services you have now, and all what needs to be coordinated. Yeah, you have to have a different structure.
Community college lecturer and popular radio personality Senator Roshard Karim Bala, also known as Pitbull, was yesterday sworn in as Parliamentary Secretary in the office of the Prime Minister. The new senator said that he will be allowed to continue lecturing at the community college until a suitable replacement is found. Speaking on Boom FM this morning, Bala said he's hoping to stay with his students until the first semester has been completed, so they will be well prepared for the second semester.
Started out by saying that a position like this is people-centric. You know, the people are at the center of what I have to do, right? Because of this, the Prime Minister has suggested that I continue at the college until a formidable replacement is found and instated. But as far as my role goes, he says he wants me on full-time. So that would mean I would have to part ways with the community college, but not before the end of the semester, so that I can continue what I started with my students early up in the semester, get them ready for the second semester so that the next incoming lecturer would be able to hit the ground running with them.
Bala also commented on the issue of the New Democratic Party's candidates who were unable to continue their teaching careers after unsuccessfully contesting general elections.
Well, there would always have to be discussions about all of these issues, right? Personally, if a teacher leaves her post to contest an election and is unsuccessful, I don't think there should be any reason or any inhibition that would prevent her from getting back her post. But because I'm relatively new to the protocols in this thing, I know that there would be some other entrails that would be required and other policy, whatever policies that exist that would lend themselves to the discussion. But I personally believe that if there is a teacher who is unsuccessful in an election, that he should go back. But I believe that the Prime Minister is having his discussions ongoing with that.
The newly named senator said he was nervous during the swearing-in exercise, but felt humble. He said that he never thought about engaging in active politics, but this opportunity will pave the way for him to become the next ULP candidate for South Windward in 2025. Bala said he will still be able to be a part of radio because his job description includes getting information to the public.
Ministry of Information with a direct link with the media outlets that are under the government, such as API and NBC.
Okay.
I would also be expected to liaise with the community leaders and the ministers and all of these other persons who are on the ground. Because one thing that was notable in the last election was that a lot of people were complaining that the politicians were out of touch. They were, they were hardly around. They couldn't get to see them. I don't know if it had to be because, they were busy with campaigning or other duties. But there needs to be that liaison. There needs to be that person who is on the ground, who is the go-between, who the person to hear and then report back to the authorities so that they would know what is happening. You understand? Make sure that the flow of information from the head to the public, from the public to the head, is uninhibited.
Social media is frightening, and though it has the possibility for tremendous good, its use can be reckless and dangerous. So says Reverend Adolph Davis, president of the SVG Christian Council, who was providing an analysis on the just concluded general elections.
So that I said to people, I said long ago, if you had something to say, because you had to say it to somebody, you checked yourself to make sure what you're saying would make sense. Now, you just type on Facebook or use social media, and there's no immediate, not the same sense of accountability because you're not facing a person. It's the same way if you go into customer service and you have to deal with a person. It's entirely different than if you have to talk to them on the phone. So I think social media has created a level of space for irresponsibility. And that is something that I think can be very dangerous. No doubt it has its good as well, but it can truly derail efforts at reconciliation and creating a different kind of narrative because people post almost anything and say almost anything. And that for me is a caution. It doesn't, and it has not facilitated the kind of reflection. People just, and the thing is with reconciliation, if I am vexed with Colville, and I could tell you all, brothers and sisters, I really don't like, and I would use a stronger word, I don't like the immaturity that social media, I call it that, perpetuates.
Reverend Davis, who is also the chairman of the National Monitoring and Consultative Mechanism, NMCM, said for there to be reconciliation, there is a need for more human face-to-face interaction, adding that social media is a product of a modern society that isn't good. The construction of a cargo port at Rose Place is moving ahead according to plans, even though it was delayed by at least 6 months due to the COVID-19 pandemic. That's the word from Chair of the Port Modernization Project, Laura Anthony Brown, as she gave an update on the project in a recent interview with SVG-TV News. The chair said that the designs for the port should be finalized by next month, which would pave the way for the start of the construction.
International companies applied to be pre-qualified. 4 of them were successful, and those 4 companies have now been invited to submit proposals for the final designs and the construction of the port. Those bids should come in to the country, so it should be submitted by December 4th of this year. And the successful, the most advantageous, technical and financially feasible bid will be selected, and sometime around the middle of next year, 2021, a contract will be entered into for this successful company to actually start the construction work.
Anthony Brown said that the first component of the project is the reclamation of several acres of seabed and the rerouting of sewer lines. Hence, engineers would be recruited. She foresees a facelift and transformation taking place to the entire Rose Place area.
Sure that the site is delivered to the contractor unencumbered. Now, of course, we are about 6 to 8 months delayed because of COVID-19. So we anticipated that we would have been ready for the site before. So we have gone ahead and compensated those 61 vendors who were there when we established the cutoff date in March 2019. When it is done, the face of Kingston will be changed. The lives of people will be improved, because one of the things that we cannot do when we are doing a project and people are affected, we must leave them in a better off condition than we met them.
The project chair also said that they have ensured all affected persons in the area were properly consulted and relocated to a better place. More than 50 persons were either paid off or are having houses built for them. Meanwhile, provision is also being made for the fisherfolk affected at Rose Place.
There's a third aspect of the project affected persons, the fisherfolk. We have identified people who actually use the Rose Place, the bay at Rose Place, to bring up their boats and, as their base. And so we are trying to do 2 things. One, at Edinburgh, to make some facilities there for them. And additionally, we are also considering some of them may well be able properly to be accommodated at Lomans Bay also. So we are considering that as well.
It is anticipated that the construction will take 2 years, and by 2022, the modern cargo port should be completed. It is being built at a cost of $185 million. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Simone Kieser-Beach said that the election COVID-19 protocols in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have been revised, and the changes became effective yesterday. In an interview with SVG-TV News Today, Dr. Kieser-Beach explained the changes that were made to the protocols.
Phase 6 of the protocols were done to accommodate the increased risk of the mass gatherings of elections, and which coincided with the major increase in cases in our source markets, being the US, the UK, and Canada, and also regional increases in COVID. So phase 7, we came back down because we no longer have the mass gatherings associated with elections, but we still have the increased risk from our source markets and in the region. So the main differences have to do with We have gone back to the medium, low-risk categories have been reintroduced. And those categories, the medium-risk one, persons come with a test. It's a 72-hour-old test. That's a change. And the persons from those medium-risk countries that arrive with a test, they would be tested and they would have to be quarantined for anywhere between 48 to 72 hours while we await the results of everybody else on the flight.
She added that St. Lucia has been placed in the high-risk category of countries as a result of their spike in COVID-19 cases.
Change is that St. Lucia has gone up into the high-risk category, and that means you come from St. Lucia with a test, you are swabbed again on arrival, and you have to stay in a hotel approved by the Tourism Authority, the Ministry of Health, for 5 days. We have reintroduced the lowest category, and we have countries like St. Kitts, Dominica in that category. Those persons also arrive with a swab, maybe swabbed on arrival, but generally would not be required to be quarantined. So the major changes are: 1, St. Lucia is in a high-risk, remains as a high-risk country. 2, everyone is coming in with a 72-hour swab if you are in a medium or low-risk country. And 3, you have the lowest countries come with a swab and minimal to no quarantine.
CMO Keyser Beach is encouraging all Vincentians to continue to be vigilant and adhere to the COVID-19 protocols, especially the security at seaports in instances of unofficial entries.
Well, we decrease the number of days in terms of the age of a test coming from a medium to and a low risk. You have to come with a 72-hour test, whereas before you were coming with a 5-day-old test. So instead of a 5-day, it has to be 3 days. And everybody must come with a test. So that is going to help us in terms of the increased vigilance, maintain vigilance. And we have also asked that the security forces increase their vigilance too in terms of our unofficial entries, in terms of persons who might be just sailing in or coming for a little stop without unofficially passing through our borders.